Hey YouTube and knife fans, so I'm doing a video on all the 80s knives which were so cool because the 80s were so cool, and if you didn't grow up in the 80s, well, sucks to be you. Nah, seriously, it was a fantastic decade. It had some of the best movies, it had some of the best music, and gave us some of the best knives. So let's have a look. So the survival knives, as they're known, even though they were sort of out well before the 80s, they became super popular in the 1980s thanks to a movie called First Blood. And even though this is not a screen accurate representation of that knife, this is my only one that I've got so far. I'll get another one soon, hopefully. This was the knife that made sawbacks, hollow handles, the whole lot, just the thing to have. So anyone who wanted a survival knife had to have something that represented this. Unfortunately, as a kid, this was what we had. Right, so that's why it's center of screen. Sad as that is. So there were some serious contenders out there, i.e. the Buckmaster, and the Gerbers came out later. You had, this is wasn't until 87, but they had in 86. I think you had the BMF. These came out, I think, in 84, 85. And the rest of them, obviously, and then these things were about 83, I think, is when I got mine. So this is not the one I had as a kid, by the way. This is one I've had to pay eBay prices for just to get it back in my collection, because I saw a whole lot of videos basically, and they all had them, and I went, wow, this was the knife that I thought was the be all to end all, because that was all I had, and so yeah, I just had to have one. So it's they all share a common theme, with the exception of the Gerbers. The Gerbers actually have solid handles. They don't have hollow handles. So but they do have the saw teeth, and it was really I think, as far as a consumable, or what's the word I'm chasing? It's they're all consumables. The commercially available serious contender, of course, was the Buckmaster, and there were a heap of knives out of Japan that were doing some really cool things. Japan was doing some really neat stuff with survival knives. A lot of them were copies of mainly this guy, but yeah, it was really cool time to be around, and survival knives were just the thing. So we'll just quickly go through them all, starting with the First Blood knife, because it's the granddaddy of them all, I guess. So this one has a 9-inch blade, 1.5 inch wide, 1/4 inch thick, and a 5-inch handle. End cap comes off, and it has a compass inside. And whether this one still works or not is another thing. I think it's actually lost its fluid. But of course, they also had a little survival capsule with a kit. So and if you've watched First Blood, you know that he uses the matches, and he also uses needle and thread to sew up his arm. So and then the compass, of course, to get his bearings when he's running away. Difference between this and the movie knife is movie knife had 14 teeth. This has only got 12. I think I've mentioned it before. This is a copy of the Lyle number 50, and it was licensed by United Cutlery. And it's it's not a badly made knife. I mean, it's a shame they've done aluminium handles and just epoxy, because you're not really going to use this. But for a wall hanger, it's quite nice. I still do want to get a proper 14 tooth survival knife, First Blood knife, because I think that's, trying to get something that's movie accurate is would be nice. And so a few, so we had 82, I think it was, First Blood. And then in 85, we had Rambo First Blood Part 2, which, they just basically upped the ante, made it a bigger, badder, and darker black. And this was definitely the knife that I think is more popular even with most collectors than First Blood knives. And what's interesting is that there's no change from the originals. There are subtle differences, but nothing major. Like we didn't go from 14 teeth down to 12. We stayed with 14 teeth, and we've had 14 teeth all along. And again, so this is a United cutlery. Both of these knives were licensed in, I think, 89. And I mean, the Rambo 3 should be in this collection as well, but it doesn't really qualify because it's not a sawback. All these knives are sawback in some degree. So in about 83 was when I got this little thing, and what a piece of crap, honestly. But here it is. This is the purpose of this video, is to talk about it. So it's got a compass on the end, which is a ball compass on the outside of the knife, of all places to have it. And then you've got your survival kit inside. I don't think there's anything in this one. No, there's nothing in here. Just these silly 2 rings that fell off. They were for a wire saw, and so you store them there. There's finger pull rings for the wire saw. The note how the thread is on the outside, where on these proper knives all the threads are on the inside. But at least you got an aluminium handle. This did come in 4 different flavors. 2 metal handle versions, black and camouflage, and 2 plastic handle versions, again black and camouflage. The difference was with the plastic handles, I think you got carbon steel blades or black blades, where you got the stainless blade on the aluminium handles. These ones did cost a bit more. I think the plastic handle version, I think, was started at about $5, and then these ones went through to 10 or 20, depending on where you were. So, but as I said, I had to have it back in my collection, so I paid the big prices. Actually, it was the shipping that was the killer, not the actual knife itself. Was still pretty cheap, but it was the shipping. So the Buckmaster was like the serious contender as far as a real survival knife went. But they were like several $100s in Australia. I think they were like 150 US, but they were like over 300 here in Australia at that time. So I certainly didn't get one until recently. A few years later, out came the Gerbers, and it was kind of interesting because there was a definite shift away from the hollow handle because of knives like this, and even these, where the handles weren't attached properly and people were taking them out in the woods, batoning, doing other things with them, and then breaking the handle or breaking the join where the handle joins the blade. I don't think too many people broke Buckmasters. They were tough. They were built tough, and they're all epoxy. Like, it's proper bolt and tang. It's a short tang, but it's a bolt, and then it's epoxied in. Gerber went off the other end of the scale by doing a solid handle. So this one's, I think it's like basically a rat's tail. I think it goes all the way up to this piece. I'm not even sure how they've attached this because I can't really see any. They've done a really good job on the finish. So, but it's solid construction, and they've also used a compressed foam for the handle as opposed to cord wraps or just bare metal. And they did 2 versions. They did the BMF, the basic multifunction, and this is the LMF. So the reason I went to this knife was, again, they were pretty expensive knives. Had to have a survival knife, but as I obviously got older, I needed something better than this, and this was really all I could afford. So It was my first serious knife. It still cost me over $200, and I've still got it to this day. And this thing has pretty much, I worked my way around Australia and I was in my 20s, and this thing travelled with me the whole way around the country. And it's held up remarkably well considering what it's been used for, and had, it's been really well built, and it's lasted. So still proud to have it in my collection. I don't know how I would have gone if I'd bought one of these. I mean, there was an extra $120 or something. If I'd bought Buckmaster, would I still even have it today? I don't know. This was really cool because it was small, fit in your backpack, really easy. Getting a bit bigger, getting ridiculously big on these ones. So I guess, yeah, something I liked about it was the same size as this thing, just a better version. So I guess that's, I was comfortable with that size. Just decided, I think it's described that, like a knife needs to be, you need to be able to, sure, cut down a tree, but you also need to prep vegetables and prep food. So if it's pointless having something that's too big, if you aren't comfortable using it, then it's not going to really serve its purpose. So there we go. I thought I'd just share this tonight. It's just because I just dug this thing out again out of the box, and decided it was worth sharing, a bit of a nostalgia. And yeah, the old 80s, man, it was a great decade. So and of course I've just thrown in this thing because, well, that's an 80s movie knife. It's not, wasn't certainly not an 80s knife, given that it was made only this year. But anyway, it's in there anyway because the shape and design is definitely 80s. And it's a sawtooth. But there it is. So that's my collection of pretty much all my serrated 80s knives, or 80s style knives, if you will, including this one. But they're definitely 80s, and yeah, very interesting when you look back and the way that the knife designs have changed over the years, and what's considered, or what was considered cool back then or practical isn't considered that anymore. So yeah, interesting stuff. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up there for now. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next one.